Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Drip Made Live. I'm your host, Jeremy Jackson. I'm coming to you live today from the state of Kansas. It's kind of a dreary, drizzly day, so it's good we've got some good weather coming up. All right. So we are tonight going to work on a couple of projects. Pardon me. A couple of projects tonight. We've got that BIG Synthetic Opal that I kind of teased earlier on in the week. It is going into a halo pendant. Pretty nice pendant. It's a 4-pronged setting, so we're going to have to cut that for a pretty large cabochon opal, and we'll get to that a little later. Here, I can pull this out. We can take a look at it. All right. We'll be coming to this a little bit later in the stream. Let's take a look here. Oh, my buttons aren't working. Here we go. There's our close-up. So, pretty large halo pendant. Some more modern filigree on the sides. And what we're putting in there is this synthetic opal. Now, don't be afraid of the word synthetic. It's a beautiful stone and will look fantastic in that mounting. It's more of a yellow color. There we go. So it will look great in that mounting. And we'll get to that a little bit later. Haven't weighed this guy. Let's figure out how big that sucker is. We'll have to get the scale out for that. Alright, let's see if my buttons are working again. They are not. Hold on for just a second, folks. All right. There we go. I think we are... All right, I've got my live controls back. All right, close up. Front cam. Let's see if microscope's working tonight. It is. May just have to move. Whoa. I may just have to move that around a little bit. There we go. We'll use that a little later. Okay, and you can see from the close-up cam our vintage ring. We'll take a little closer look at this in the microscope here in a moment. We've got baguettes, we've got rounds, a couple of different styles of setting here. And it looks like there may have been some damage at some point on one of these. I apologize for clearing my throat so much, folks. I'm going to hit mute when I do that. So on the sides here, we have what are called fishtail settings. I'm going to zoom in as close as I can. Well, maybe we'll look at this in the microscope. That'll be a little more apparent. Okay, these are what we call fishtail settings, and I'll show you the way they're set. It's not a complicated setting. It's easy to carve into something, and that's why you see it in a lot of vintage pieces. Wax carvers love the fishtail setting for some reason. I've done a couple of these in other applications. One moment. Okay, I've done a couple of these in other applications. So we'll take a look at how to repair that. We've got a couple of missing stones, and we're going to set a center stone here. This is a 1.5 carat. Now this is Euro cut, so we're going to have to pay particular attention when it comes to Whoop, should probably figure out a better way to demonstrate these stones and rings. I'll make that my mission for the next week. All right, so this is a Euro cut. It's going to have slightly different proportions than a round, brilliant, ideal cut. Most of the time, it's missing a culet, and we have fewer facet junctions on the back. It has a slightly different pattern to the way it reflects light, and so it will be noticeably different than a round, brilliant looking at it from the top. If you were to compare them side to side. Now, setting in another ring, it won't be hard, or won't be easy to tell unless you have a pair of them sitting next to each other. So we are going to take that and cut some new seats with this. We're going to bend those prongs back. This is an uncommon setting style now, where it appears to be 3 prongs split off. We'll take a closer look at that in the microscope here in a moment. But it's supposed to have the appearance that it's 3 separate prongs pulled over. Kind of like the top of a fleur-de-lis, if you can imagine. Now those tend to wear off pretty easily, and you're left with kind of a mush. Just over time, that's how it happens. Now, you can have that refurbished, and I think that's probably the intent here. But what we're going to do is, what we're going to do is try to replicate that style, but do it a little bit lower in the ring. We may have to take that down, the prongs down a little bit, to accommodate the different sized stone. We don't know what was in it originally. There we go. All right, but we are going to set these stones on the sides here. I was wondering if there's a funny smell here in the in the shop. It's my steamer. it's relatively new, so it's still burning off all the funk and junk that comes out of the factory. So I was looking around looking for something burning, checking to see if my torch was on. All right. So we'll start with that, and we will come back to this big opal. Okay. One reminder, I just put up 3 videos on YouTube. They are clipped-down versions of episode 4, where we set a sapphire oval in a halo ring. We set a big pair in a yellow gold halo ring. That was a tourmaline, a rubellite. And then we set a diamond pendant, and I walk through all the steps on each one of those, go with my logic and with my decision making along the way. When I choose to do something, why I choose not to do or other things. So check those out. It is a good primer on 4-prong stone setting. I mean, I will go back and polish it probably and do other settings like it, but we are that's kind of my intent. I'm putting these together both as entertainment and instructables, so I hope you can glean some kind of information from there. If you're joining me from Facebook, and you are coming from one of the groups, thank you for checking me out. I hope I can show you something new if you aren't a seasoned stone setter, and if you are, I hope you can tell me something new. So if there's anything that you see me doing that you think, hey, I've got a better process with that. Now, I see a lot of talk in the stone setting community about using ball burrs to set everything, and I am a little iffy on that. I think you can do a much better seat using the angles to your advantage and addressing the stone with an appropriate shaped cut, not just cutting it out, carving it out with the ball burr. Just my opinion. If you can show me differently, I'd love to see it. Or if you've got a tip on how to do something differently, let me see it too. All right. So let's take a quick look in the microscope at our vintage piece, and we can kind of talk through the few things that I was talking about here. Let's make absolutely sure we are in focus tonight. Our microscope cam decided to glitch out briefly last night. I couldn't quite get to the things I wanted to. Alright. So, these are kind of an old style cut baguette. Very few facets. On either side. Looks like it originally had mill grain, and I'm guessing, I'm going to point some of these things out as I'm working. I'm guessing that this was a split set of bars, just like they had up here, and over time that's just worn down. That is the nature of gold, and platinum even. They do wear out a little bit. Okay, we have a little bit of a hiccup here that we're going to have to come back and address probably at a different time. We'll do the setting tonight, and we'll see about doing that soldering tomorrow. Oh, excuse me. Soldering Monday or Tuesday. I may run a stream on Monday. It just depends on how things are going out here at the farm. So it's a busy place. We got in-laws and baby, and trying to make sure Mama is getting plenty of time with him. She goes into work and then comes home, and I go to stream. So yeah, we may come back and readdress some of this mill grain just to clean it up, make it look nice. I could potentially put another line of mill grain on here just to clean that up. Okay, so these are the fishtail settings that I was talking about. Now it looks like we got kind of mushed here. We're going to bend those back out. And a fishtail setting like this, most of the time those are split, so we're not going to look to resolder those. We're just going to pick an appropriate size stone and bend these back into place, so it shouldn't be very difficult. We may have to do a slight repair on the side here. Let's take a good look at that. See, it looks like it split away. I'll press that back into place, and we'll see what we can do to get that back. The other sides look like they may be split away anyway. They tried to get as close as possible. So we may just push that back into place and go from there. Okay, now here at the top you can kind of see what I mean by looking like it had three separate prongs. You've got a gentle split here. Most of the time that would come up into a separate bead, and sometimes even a bead in the middle here, just depending on the style. So what we're going to do, very much apologize for clearing my throat. Alright, so what we're going to do is probably bend those prongs gently back into place here. That is not a terrible seat for that. However, looks like when they cut this out, or cut the old stones out, whatever they were, they did it with a cutoff wheel, cutoff disc. That's a common way to remove stones. You can grind on a diamond all day with those, and it will only grind your disc away. But they make it useful for cutting away areas tied up against diamonds. You can't use them on any other stone, or you shouldn't, as long as you're gentle with it. You can cut away prongs and things. So what we'll do, let's look at the inside of this. Alright, what we'll do is, you see the original seat here. We're not going to use that. We're going to go a little bit lower. I'm going to cut a new seat. We're going to use this and pull it in, and then I'm going to reshape those prongs, leaving enough metal over the top to refinish that into a a similar looking style. Now this is where I would love to have a laser welder, because you can rebuild some of this even with the stone in place, depending on the metal. Rebuild some of this and use the original work. However, you're still going to have to go back in and rebuild the tips of these that have worn down over time. So without that luxury, I think I'm going to take an easier route and just cut that stone a little bit lower. We've got plenty of prong there. I have no fears about it going anywhere. And then use these prongs as material to cut it back into that style. Let's see if this is stamped, because I kind of get the feeling this may not be white gold. I thought it was white gold and rhodiumed, but looking at the seat where the stone was, there is no discoloration. Where the metal was cut away. So it's still white right here. So I'm thinking this may be platinum. Let's take a file over the top of these prongs. And this is how I would determine whether something was platinum. Because there's not an easy test like you do with a gold assay. They have electronic testers. They do a pretty good job of identifying platinum. But beyond that, there's no acid test like there would be with sterling silver or gold. There it is. Okay. So we're going to drag a file. Oh, yes. That is plat. P-L-A-T. So with the older style here, I would say it's likely that this is platinum ruthenium. Platinum cobalt ruthenium? I may be mixing that up with something. I'll do a little bit of dressing on this mill grain. That stone's got a little nick in it, so we'll stay off of it if we have to. It's probably an inclusion more than a break. Same thing. Over time, because it's platinum, it likes to mush. Kind of smear over the top of the stone. Yes. Okay. Let's check just in case and see if it's got a stamp. It came labeled to me as a gold ring. However, it may not be. Okay, well, the good news is that makes it a little bit easier to work and bend. The bad news is, if I need to fill this little gap, that's going to make it a hell of a challenge. That is where a laser welder would come in very, very handy. Now, aha, someone else did the same thing. Looks like they cut out a chunk here. Yep, and soldered in a bar and reshaped it to repair that. So we may have to do a very similar thing if I've got any platinum stock. We'll try to push that out. I've got some repair solder. I don't want to leave a discoloration. Now they used repair, you can kind of tell in the change in color character there. You see the little chunk chopped out. And it's slightly different color. If we polish this, you won't be able to see it that well, but as it dulls, you'll see a change in the color. Okay. This is a very thin band, so we're going to do as little work as we can on those areas. It almost looks like... No. Well, someone definitely went in and repaired that. Okay. Well, let's do the setting work. Well, shoot. We may have to do that repair before we do anything else. So I've got a scrap platinum band here that I can take a little bit out of. Let's look at how it compares first. Size-wise, and we'll see what we need to cut out. Okay, so if we did pretty much what they did, we took a piece of that off, we flattened it out, laid it all the way across there, flattened it by about half, and then reshaped that. That'll clean up really well. So we're going to have to cut that pretty well to fit that piece. What I may do, instead of cutting metal away, with the saw, well, this one's a little bit different. So we'll come back to that. Okay. So we need to address that first. Now, one thing we absolutely have to do when we're going to solder on anything platinum or platinum-like, palladium, things like that, we have to make sure we are spotless, clean. Because any kind of contaminant could burn on the stones. So just in wearing, you'll get skin cells, you'll get lotion, you'll get things like that packed up under the stones. This one's relatively clean. It looks like it probably got cleaned before it came to me. There's a little bit of an oil on some of those stones. So we're just going to make sure that gets completely cleaned off before we do any heat work on a piece like this. I'm going to use a, let's see, I'm looking for a flat file. I'm going to use that to, number one, confirm my suspicions about platinum. There we are. Number two, see if that might match the area that we're going to cut out. And then we'll just file it away instead of sawing out a section. Yes. And very much yes. That is definitely platinum. Okay. So we get to do a little platinum soldering tonight. That is something I was planning on a stream possibly tomorrow or Monday with, but we'll do a little tonight just as a test case. So I'm going to cut a little bit of this way and see what kind of structure we're looking at below it. All right. try to keep it centered here. All right. So we'll turn this over where we can work with it. I don't want to take away too much metal. I wish I could just fold some of that down, put a flat spot in it, and use that, but I think I'm going to have to trim this whole section out. So what I'm going to do to make sure I don't cut too much, well, I think that's probably right on the money. We're going to flatten that piece out a little bit. And as we do, it'll expand. Let's cut a little chunk out of this and we'll start working with it. All right. So we'll go to our bench pen. I really like this ball because it's on that articulating mount. You can move it all different places, but also tuck it away and keep using your bench pen. So let's zoom out real quick. Do a wide shot on our close-up here, and I'll show you my setup. Okay, so I've got 3 of the GRS brackets on a movable mount. Now this can be adjusted up or down on the fly. And I've got 3 different sections here. One that I use mainly for my bench pen up high or middle. So mainly the bench pen up top, the bench mate, the ring holder on the middle one, and then sometimes the bench pen when I'm doing filing and things like that. And then in the bottom, that's where that ball mount goes. I really like that because I can tuck that away, and it doesn't take a lot of time or effort to do. All right, so let's cut off a pretty good chunk. I'm going to get a measurement of the width of this, so I know what I'm shooting for. Uh, 2.2 millimeters. So we're going to start with about 2 millimeters. I'm not going to do the thing where you scratch it with your dividers. I'm going to lock that at about 2 millimeters, and I'm going to transfer it to my dividers, comparing the size. Get pretty close. I could do this under the microscope, but we're not looking for exact since we're going to tap this piece a little bit wider than the space and then trim the space to fit. So we're going to take our dividers, then we're going to transfer that onto our ring. That should be more than enough space. Let's take our saw here. And I really like using this ring pin is what it's called. It's pretty useful for an application like this where I'm holding a ring. It's better if the ring is solid, it is complete, and doesn't already have a chunk missing out of it. Let's get our view up here. But this lets you pinch something around it, and then cut down the center, which makes it very easy to do things like sizings. Find a good tool to mark with. I like the Marks a lot, or not Marks a lot. Mark-a-size. Marks a lot's the Sharpie brand, right? The Mark-a-size. So I could have used that to cut that too. All right, so we want to make sure we don't lose our platinum piece here. we're not going to cut all the way through right away. And cut almost all the way through, and when we see that gap start to open up, we're going to slow it down. I like this ring pin because it helps you keep everything in line. The saw can stay in line. You can manage the piece with one hand. Okay, so I stopped sawing right before the end of that, and we're just going to twist that off. There we go. And we can take that off our angel, and we can put this away. That we will use for sizing later. Okay, so now we've got a tiny chunk of platinum. It's kind of square, but it does have a round shape because it came out of the center of a ring. So what we're going to do, we want that flat. We're going to take our bench block here and set it on. It doesn't really matter which direction you set it, up or down, because we're going to pound this. We're not going to tap, well, we may tap directly. I might be telling you guys a bit. Let's grab a flat hammer. This is peened on one side and flat on the other. Most of the time, I guess you could polish these smooth, but I don't know if it's entirely necessary. But what we're going to do is just give that a little tap. We're going to try to reduce the size of this by about half, so we don't have a lot of metal to clean up. So just little taps, and ensure we contact only the piece. All right, so we've got that tapped out. We can go to back to our microscope briefly. Okay, so you can see as this tapped flat, it kind of bowed out a little bit. Interesting. Looks like there may have been a repair at some point in that spot. Well, that complicates things a little more. Because now I definitely don't want to use this piece. We may need to cut a different piece out of that. Because it looks like it's already been soldered on. It's got a pit or a hole. With platinum, I wouldn't expect that to happen from bending it. Let's see how deep that goes. If it's kind of shallow, we may just continue using it. A very little piece. There's always something unexpected with a vintage piece. I can tell you from experience that that is almost always the case. That you get into it and you realize they did some funky magic back in the day. And you ended up with something, how do I put it? Challenging. CatJack9 asks how is it going? Well, it's going pretty well. We're having a good day. In-laws are here, so that always makes things go a little bit smoother. They're the hardest working people I have ever known in my life. And that's not to put any hard-working people out there to shame. They just do it. Go, 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 go. All right, dropped our little piece here. I'm Better find that. That might be important. Well, I may abandon that one regardless because of that weird spot. It looked like it was a little deeper than I thought. Let's take a look at that ring we were cutting out of and see what kind of mess we're dealing with here. Yep, I'm kind of glad I cut that out. So that would have made things a lot more challenging once I went to solder this back in. Alright, let's take a look at the piece we're gonna... Let's cut a different chunk out. Let's do this side. Once again, 2 millimeters. There it is. Okay. Now let's see how that measures across. We may go a different direction here. Could get away with 2 millimeters that direction. Yep. Let's cut that out. All right, let's cut it out a different piece real quick. Well, this ring pin's going to make it a little more difficult on this this larger band. We can hold it, suspend it over here. I could do this just as easily on the bench pin, since it's not a complete piece. There we go. Since we're gonna pound that up a little bit, well, ting! That is the sound of a broken saw blade. I'm gonna swap to another one. Go a little thicker. Hope you heard that little sound, that twang. That is the sound of a taut saw blade, which is very satisfying. This is another instance where a laser welder would come in very handy. Maybe one of these days. You get spoiled with a laser welder. You can ask most, well, up to one point, a lot of jewelers just didn't have them. They were too expensive, and a guy working out in his little shop by himself, a family jeweler, probably trained around it and didn't utilize it. They knew how to do everything without having to rely on the laser welder. But as they've gotten cheaper and more places are using them, it's becoming a requirement to have that knowledge when looking for a position, or it's highly valued. Okay, we've got our little chunk here. We're going to use the flat of our hammer and pound it out. Then we're going to use a peen hammer. This is going to allow us to expand that just a little bit. Make sure we do it on both sides here. We want it uniform as much as possible. Just shaping that out. We don't need very much. So back to the flat hammer just to flatten it. Let's take a look at what we've got. Let's see what adjustments we might need to make. Whoop, wrong ring. All right, so that is about as wide as we want to go. Just a little bit big of a chunk, and we'll cut off what we don't need, what we don't use, and we'll leave what is there just as a heat sink for the rest of it. I'd rather solder a bigger piece like this and cut off what I don't use. It also saves material. Or it saves larger chunks of material for use later. So I'm going to probably put it in just like that. So we're going to cut this deeper so we get down below this area where it splits away. We're going to make sure that we don't go much wider. So that is going to be the limit on either side. Okay. I'm doing a lot of this under the microscope and not realizing. Okay. Let's see how we focus here. Okay. We are in focus on our little hiccup. Let's make sure we are on camera too. Perfect. Okay. So it looks like it just got so thin and so worn down over the years that it collapsed. So we're going to grind some of that away. One moment here. Make sure we're still going everywhere. Where are you, Rumble? This will be a good opportunity for me to tell you to click all the buttons, hit the like button, hit the follow button if you can. It does me a big service. All right. Good. On Rumble, you'll hit the follow button. On YouTube, you can hit the subscribe. I know you already know this, but uh, it certainly doesn't help to drop a reminder every once in a while. All right. Let's take a look at what we're doing. Okay, so we've got that marked where we don't want to trespass beyond. And we're just going to cut some of that away. Try to maintain a nice square shape. It'll make it easier to fit and solder in. The most important part when soldering something is contact. The closer you can get, in making contact, flat contact, even if it's not perfectly flat, but the closer you get, the better that solder is going to flow. In this case, we're going to use repair solder, so it'll flow kind of like gold solder. Still have to get this very hot, about 1500 degrees Celsius. You will notice when we go to solder on it that it will turn white. And I won't be able to work with it when it's white hot without some kind of protection. Okay, let us find our little chunk wherever you did go. Had you here a second ago, little chunk. Aha! Little chunk indeed. So Saturday night. I know a lot of people are out doing things and enjoying. So if you're tuning in after our live stream, thank you for watching. If you have any questions about this, you can leave them in the comments of the video, even though the live chat is going to be closed by the time you watch it. You can leave those in the comments of the video, and I will come back on the very next stream and answer any of those questions. Anything that pops up between shows, we will answer. So, just get an idea of how that's going to fit in there. I'm going to take my file now and flatten the top and bottom of this. I think I want a little bit of overhang on this end so that doesn't bow downward. So let's clean that up a little bit with our file. And do this mainly in the microscope. Try not to chase this around too much in our close-up cam. Let's see how close we can get here. Okay. The chunk is a little fatter on one side than the other. I'm going to angle that. I'm going to angle it this way, and the reason I'm doing that is so we have a little bit of overhang. That solder will pull out a little bit further into that gap, and we won't have to do quite as much filing and shaping Get that to look nice. Go a little bit deeper on this side. I'm going to try to match our piece instead of doing a lot of work with our little bitty tiny platinum chunk. Okay. We're going to go deeper still. So that we have lots to work with. And that's complete. Okay. Now, soldering around diamonds, the platinum solder, you have to be very careful, because when you get into the 1500 degree Celsius range, you start to get to the point where diamonds can ignite. Yes, you can burn a diamond. That, or where they oxidize, where you start getting pitting and funny textures on the polished surfaces of the stone due to the heat and due to any contaminants that might be around the diamond when it's lit. Diamonds will kind of glow a red just like metal. When you start getting really close to them burning, there's a fine line where they start to turn red and they start to oxidize, so you have to be careful with that. Alright, so we've got that fit in kind of nicely here. And a little bit of a gap. I think we are going to leave a lot of that as it is. So when I solder this, I'm going to pull it. Because it's repair, it should flow relatively well. I'm going to pull it from the inside out. So I'll put my solder balls inside the ring, and then I'll heat. Heat the outside, heat this part of the shank, staying away from the stone. I'll probably put my clamp right here next to it to take some of that heat away and make sure that diamond doesn't oxidize. But what we're going to do first, I'm going to set my chunk in a safe spot. We'll take this ring out and we'll go into our cleaner with it. We want to make absolutely sure it is sparkling clean before we do any kind of heat work around platinum, or around diamonds set in platinum. Okay, so let's look at it from the end here. That repair that somebody else already did, pretty much the same spot. So clearly this was an issue That's broken away. We should be able to bend it down. Make it look at least like it's similar to the other side. Set those stones in. And then we'll get back to our center stone. But we want to do all our soldering work before we do our setting. If I'm going to burn up a diamond, I would rather it be these little guys than I would that center stone. All right, so let's go into our sonic real quick. Okay. I very much respect the people that can carve wax. It is not my forte. I did well enough just smoothing the waxes we took out of our wax molds in school. But wax is not my medium. Or media. So we'll come back to that guy. Let's do this pendant. We'll take a look and see how our stone fits. Let's take our chain off of here. Okay. I'm going to take our chain off, I think. So next week, I'm going to start working on some things that I've got that will go up on the website as soon as they are finished here. This one will not be one of them, but it is still available for purchase. You just have to contact me. I'm going to flash my info up on the screen real quick. dml@jacksonfamilyjewels.com. If you like this piece a lot, it really is a cool opal pendant. If you like this piece a lot, you can contact me through dml@jacksonfamilyjewels.com, and we can talk about it. All right. There we go. So, as is customary with a cabochon, it doesn't quite cooperate because it's bowed on the underside. It's common, very common with a hand-cut stone, because of the lapidary equipment, to take the easy way out instead of trying to get a perfectly flat back that makes a stone setter's life a lot easier. They will round it off because it's easier to work. Man, this is a slick stone. I can't get it anywhere. They will round it off because it's easier to make a round surface than a square one on the lapidary tools. They're kind of soft wheels, and you press the stones into them. So you can make some really, really easy curves. So we're going to set this as low as possible and try to get it to touch the baskets here because it is so long. We're going to try to touch the under gallery with the edge of the stone. So we're going to cut our seats right across the center, right across that under gallery. And because it's curved on the bottom, we'll do a gentle curve on the bottom seat, and then we will cut off an appropriate amount to curve up over the top. We'll set the stone aside for now. And let's get our piece in some gray stuff. Helps if you turn on your gas. Yep. All right. I'm just going to warm this stuff up. You can use a pretty hot torch. Just don't stay on it very long. It might discolor from other contaminants being in there. You get more oxidation if you do this, so it will turn black. But it shouldn't hurt the material. And this stuff, for the amount that you use, is quite inexpensive. Even though it looks like it costs a lot per pound. That pound goes a long way. I think I've said that before. Okay. So we've got that mounted up. We're going to let that cool down just a little bit. You can kind of push some of this stuff up into the filigree and that'll hold it a little bit better. Okay, let's take a look in the microscope. Huh. Oh. There we go. Alright, kind of a standard style and setting. Looks like they might have done a little bit of fancy work here, making them V inset. Probably a cast piece. Based on the look of the textures in the area here, this was probably a wax 3D model. The grow lines there. Okay. Huh. That's odd that they put the stamp on the side. You see all kinds of stuff. Okay. So what I'm going to use is a rounded, or a, this is a special burr that I've made specifically for cutting things like this. And I'll show you a close-up here in just a second once I find it. Yep, they're all settled in, and they are, they're loving on the baby. Everyone made it here safe. So I have a burr I made for this exact purpose somewhere around here. It's just a matter of finding it. There it is. Okay, so I took a ball burr that was still sharp, and I smoothed that end off with a cutoff wheel. There are a couple of missing teeth there, but it still cuts relatively well. And what that does is it helps me mimic the shape of the bottom seat of a cabochon. Now in this case it's going to be a little more rounded, but this will give me the general cut that I need to make into into the prong for the seat, and then I will make adjustments from there. Right. Micromotor. With our special burr here. I'm going to cut this at kind of an angle. I'm turning away from the camera here. But you should be able to see how I'm holding the tool. Alright. So at this level, maybe I'll go in and mark this just to show it. I'm going to use the side of the file, lay it across the top, and just give it a little notch. Since I want that stone to sit all the way down on my gallery, but not put pressure on it there, I'm just using that gallery as a line, as a guideline. There we go. So a little notch all the way around. Now, taking this, I'm not going to go very deep. And I have to be particularly careful about runaround on this, so I don't want to let that slow down. Because I know that this oval is shaped more elongated than with this pendant. I'm going to kind of bias my cut on one side versus the other. Try to keep that flat with our line. Okay, working our way around. Next part. It's 14 carats, so it cuts relatively quickly. Only doing just a notch. We don't want to go too deep in there. Kind of a uniform notch all the way around. Let's get our stone and start making the adjustments we need. Hopefully it'll sit down in there a little more. So what I am going to do on these is flatten the inside of those prongs so that we can lay this all the way down on the stone. But before that, we need to have our base, our seat, squared away. Oops. Like I said, it's going to have kind of a little bit of a curve to the bottom. And now those prongs will lie flat. Just barely notch that. As I bring those prongs in, which I may have to do just a little bit. How expensive are laser welders for jewelry? Well, they range on the high end. The big ones are about 40 grand. And they're standing models. They've got megawatt lasers, so they're pretty darn powerful. Ooh, I don't like the way that is bending. Megawatt laser's pretty powerful. And they do all kinds of metals. I do not like how these prongs are made. It is just barely in there. So we're going to be particularly careful when we go to bend these prongs not to overbend them. Ooh-wee. Yeah. I do not like the way that is. Just a littlest bit of metal holding that in. But on the low end, in the range of power that you need to work with jewelry, they have like a 200 watt laser. The tabletop versions are about $4 grand, $5 grand after shipping and any kind of freight charges, because they can be pretty big. All right. Oh yeah, we are really thin. You can buy standing versions now for about 12 grand, and they do pretty much everything you need to do, even eyeglass repair. They may not be very powerful, but they'll do silver. Some of the lower wattage lasers won't do silver, because you have to get silver, or you have to hit silver with a lot of energy to get it to flow. It is very good at dissipating energy, so silver is usually what you have to run the highest settings on. Platinum, oddly enough, even though you have to put a lot of energy into platinum to solder it, to melt it, it does really well with the laser. It sucks up the energy you blast into it, and so you run it around where you do white gold. But silver is nearly double the energy. Okay, good. We're gonna have a good seat here. But yeah, the 200 watt lasers would do pretty much everything. They've come down quite a bit in price, but still very expensive. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and trim the prongs up tall enough. I'm just going to flatten this off so that we can lay it gently on the stone. Okay. so we've got those flattened off where we can hug the stone. Now here is where I'm going to start shaping it round on the base so I can drop that stone in and have it sit level. I'm going to do that with a little ball burr. I'm going to go smaller than that. That's not small enough. Like a 0.5, a 0.6 ball burr. And I'm only doing this because I know that the shape of that bottom lobe, can't remember my cabochon terminology. The bottom surface, the bottom plane, is rounded similar to the top, just not quite as much depth. And trim these away so that we don't put pressure with a point on the bottom of that stone. I want it to nestle in nicely, and hopefully that'll bring it down enough where we'll also touch the basket. I'm focusing my attention on the curve on just the bottom seat. I don't want to take away any more than I have already on the prong. Let's see how that fits now. Okay. Can round that out just a little more on that side. This side is not sitting in. Let's make sure we turn it the same way every time. There we go. Ooh. Ooh, that fits in nicely. So a little bit of rock there, but I can cut away. No, I will not cut away. I will leave that exactly where it's at. That is going to fit really well. Okay, so now I need to look at this and see how much prong I need. We have to get up above the shoulders of this stone. And the shoulders, I mean, from the sides where they slope up to the top of the dome. It's flat, and then it rolls over. We want to get pretty high up on that side so that it'll hold the stone in place. So we're going to have to cut away quite a bit of metal on these prongs. But since we're happy about the bottom seat, we're going to leave it alone. We want to get at least to here where the shoulder changes, and we'll cut in deep enough, kind of shape it. I'm going to draw my potential seat lines here. We're coming up at an angle, and then we're rolling over gently there. Not going to cut more than half of the stone or the prong away, and then when I go to finish this, I'll cut it off about there and round this shape over. But we want to make sure we don't cut too sharp of a curve, because we want it to lay flat all the way up the side of the stone. Okay. Oh. So I've got that one marked, kind of how I'm going to shape it. We're going to take that as our pattern, and then we're going to cut that general shape into all the prongs real quick. And then we'll replicate it. We'll make adjustments per side, because one side looks like it's going to curve just a hair more than the other. That's pretty typical. I want to make sure this is flat up against the stone. This is whoa, run around. Yep. And the pedal is drifting away, seemingly on its own. Crash, bang, boom. Okay. We don't want to run this too fast, but we also don't want it to slow down when it hits the prong. We might even accelerate it just a hair. That'll prevent runaround. Okay, kind of where we're going there. Sure, we leave our bottom seat alone. It's gonna look like we're taking a lot away, but really we're not. Now, if I did happen to cut this at too sharp a curve, once I get up there, I can grab the top of that prong because we have a little bit of extra and rebend it to fit the stone. I don't want to have to do that a lot. So I'm going to try my best to shape this the same all the way around. Let's see how that fits. All right. Oh, if you have any live chats on YouTube, or questions you have for me on YouTube or Rumble, I will gladly answer them. If you want to ask about the process that I'm working on right now, or anything that I've worked on up to this point, be happy to answer any questions. That is the purpose of what I'm doing. Okay. Once again, making sure we turn this the right way every time. It sounds like our steamer's up and running, huh? There we go. As I bring that in, that's gonna, whoop, if I don't lose it. There we go. Okay, so I want to take that a little bit farther, a little bit taller. We don't want to lay it too far inward. We don't want it to appear that the prongs are bent in around the stone as much. We'd rather them to appear to be straight. There's some people that may prefer to do a talon or a claw prong with something like this. I think that'd look fine. But my concern is with the claw prong, you're going to have to bend that way over the stone. And with those little bitty bars holding the basket in, I don't know if I would take that risk. Just as a personal strategy there. Okay. Going to try to match that on this side. And we'll make adjustments from there. may want to go ahead and mark the height. Well, I guess we won't need to. We'll have the stone in. If this were not a synthetic opal, if this were a natural opal, I couldn't sonic it after I've got the seat, or after I've got the stone in place. I can't throw this whole thing in the sonic, and because of that, you can't get a good plating on something like this. So what you want to do, if it's a natural opal, is do all the work you need to do, have it ready to pull the prongs over, polish everything, and then you set the stone. Well, that is quite a challenge. To set that without putting any marring or nicks or anything on the prongs when you bend them. I did a demonstration of that on episode 7, I believe, where I set the stone, or I prepared the piece entirely, got it rhodiumed, got it clean and everything before I put the stone in. And I'm happy with how that turned out. So take a look at that. This one will approach a little differently since we don't have to have, or we're not treating it like we have those kind of restrictions. That stone was also synthetic, but we, I didn't know that at the time, and I wasn't going to make assumptions based on just the appearance of the stone. You cannot do that. There may be an opal out there that looks very similar to this. That's the purpose of it being a synthetic, is it looks like the stone. So you have to approach opal in a different way than you do other stones, because it's organic. It's liable to not break but change structure in the sonic. So you've got to be real careful with them. Okay. I cut away quite a bit of that, but I'm pretty happy with how that matches up. And that should be more than enough prong to keep that in place. More than enough height on the prong, rather. Okay, we're going to do something similar on the back here, on the bottom. What's the difference in NJack40 says, what's the difference in silver metals such as platinum, white gold, sterling silver, etc., and are they graded in cost from bad, good, better, or worse? Which is the best quality? Now, so silver colored metals, I think is what you're saying. We're going to call them white metals for the purposes of this discussion. So white metals, you got it right. You have silver, which is a very high white when it's sterling. They make sterling silver alloys. I think one's called, you've got argentium, you've got sterlium. Those are just alloys. They're sterling silver, but they've got very white alloyed metals, so they retain their very high white color. Then you have platinum, that's also a white color when it's finished. Palladium, which is also a white color, and white gold, which is not a white color. It is white, but it still has a yellow tinge to it. So we resolve that by rhodium plating over white gold, and then it keeps that white, crisp color. Now, the difference in silver metals: platinum is heavier, denser, harder, retains its polish well, but once it does take scratches, they are difficult to remove. White gold is lighter, less dense, works easier. It is cheaper than platinum by weight, and it is very common in the jewelry industry. You've got a lot of things made in 10 karat white, 14 karat white, 18 karat white, same as you do yellow. The carat rating is just the percentage of gold in the piece, not 18%, but if you take it out of 24, so 18 out of 24 karat being pure gold, would be 75%. You'll sometimes see rings stamped 750. That would also be 18 karat. That just means it's 75 out of 100 percent gold. So 14 karat is 58.5% gold. That's the most common jewelry metal, but it doesn't have that white color, the bright white. Now, like I said, we have a resolution to that. That's what our setup over here is. That is a rhodium plating system. Then you have sterling silver. We talked a little bit about that in the other alloys. Also white, very light compared to gold. If you were to rate the specific gravity, I believe gold is 32. No, sorry. Gold is 13. Platinum is 33, 32, somewhere around there. And silver is 10, meaning it is less dense than all of those, so it will be lighter. The same volume piece will appear to be lighter. It is more difficult to work with the laser. It is easy to solder. You don't have to get it quite as hot as any of the other metals. Whereas platinum you have to get very hot. Silver you don't. And then you have palladium. Palladium is a platinum family metal that is light, very light, almost silver light, but performs very similar to platinum. It is slightly off-white, but you can't plate it, depending on the alloy. Now, some alloys of palladium are very white, just like platinum, but they are very, very light, and you can pick up two rings, one platinum, one palladium, and the difference is glaring. It's very obvious. Even with white gold, a palladium ring of the same size is going to feel lighter. Palladium, you cannot plate. If you put it in a rhodium bath, it etches the metal and it gives it a patterning that takes the polish away instantly. So if you ever work with a palladium piece and you go to rhodium it, you find out really quickly if it's palladium. So value-wise, platinum, because it's denser, because your piece is going to be heavier, is going to be more expensive, even though the metal teeters back and forth between being more expensive than gold per ounce. It depends on the year. Gold is higher right now. I can give you the spot price, but it's irrelevant. You're going to pay more for a platinum piece because it is denser and will feel heavier for the same volume of metal. Then you have palladium, which is still very expensive, but not as expensive as it used to be. White gold is going to be based on the carat weight, and then sterling silver is going to be your cheapest metal. And in cheapness, it's drastically cheaper, $32 an ounce versus peaking $2,000 an ounce for gold. So very cheap metal to work with. Sterling silver jewelry is typically pretty inexpensive. And that's mainly because you don't have to use a lot of silver, and it's very cheap to make a piece. I hope that answers your question. Best quality. Now that is going to depend on the application. A platinum ring will retain its weight better than gold. Gold will abrade away over time, losing weight. Rarely do you ever see a platinum band that is thin due to wear, but gold bands do wear out over time, especially thin ones. They'll just get thinner and thinner and thinner through wear because your skin is abrading that away, other things are abrading it, you're tapping it on things. And when you tap something with platinum, most of the time it stays together. You're not abrading it away the same way as you do gold, because platinum is much harder. Okay. Which episode had... wrap that all up and put a bow on it. Best quality depends on what you're looking for. Value-wise, you get what you pay for in metals. That's kind of all I can say there. Best application for gold, 14 karat. 18 karat gold is very soft. Any higher than that, it gets very soft. But 18 karat gold is much more expensive, so value-wise, you're getting a little bit more. Now, 18 karat white gold is more yellow than even 14 karat white gold, and noticeably yellow sometimes, and has to be plated to retain a white color. And you'll notice, even after it's rhodiumed, as the gold, or as you wear things and it abrades the surfaces, it will turn back to yellow because you're taking away that layer of white rhodium that's on top. Okay. CatJack9 says, what episode had the black opal? I believe... I will confirm that now. I was cutting up the videos for episode 7, and I think that's the episode that it's on. Scratch that. Episode 5 is the black opal. And I will have a shortened version of that where it's not part of the live stream. I'll cut that section out like I did with the other sections from episode 6, and they will go up on the web, on YouTube and Rumble also. So if you wanted to watch specifically that, just hang out for a little while. That video should go up this week, depending on how fast I get to cutting. Now, I am not a video producer, so I'm working my way along with this this software right now, but it is a learning curve. All right. Expect the same kind of quality from the other videos, meaning I'm doing the minimum that I, or the maximum that I know currently how to do. And those will get better over time, probably. Alright. Just going to make sure we can cut this over so we can bend it to fit our opal. And thank you guys for those questions. If anyone else has a question, throw it into chat. I would love, love, love to answer it. It is... one of the main reasons I created this channel. Okay. So opening these up pretty far. Hopefully it picks back up. Okay. And hopefully, if you're watching, you're back now. I'm going to take that a little higher on those sides. If you're looking for episode 5, I believe it is not going to be on YouTube. That is one thing I'm going to check on real quick here. Yes, episode 5 is not on YouTube. It is only right now on Rumble. So you can catch it there. And that's because we didn't multi-stream in episode 5, but we started multi-streaming, I believe, in episode 6. I realize there are a lot of better things you can be doing on your Saturday evening, but I really appreciate you guys joining me, even if it's a brief time. You can always catch these episodes later. The live streams will go up pretty quickly. It takes about 45 minutes to process after I shut them down. You can still watch the portions that are processing, and then once it's processed, it may kick you back out of that video, but then it'll have a searchable video after that, or a seekable video after that. Okay. Like the way these are going. We're going to set these with the same kind of principles we would with any other prong. Meaning, as we move it, we're not going to move it in a single direction. We're going to give it a little twist. And move it multiple directions as we pull it over, and that keeps it from springing back. There's another difference in Jack 40. There's another difference in metals, and that's how malleable they are. White gold is a little bit more brittle and less malleable, meaning bendable, than platinum. If you were to take two pieces of wire, a white gold wire and a platinum wire, and bend them, you would notice that the white gold wire, maybe imperceptibly, would spring back a little bit more than platinum. Platinum will hold its shape, which makes it great for stones. Not great when it comes to holding things like tension mounts, tension setting, because it's easier to bend. Okay, I like how these seats are lining up. This guy, I need to open up just a hair on top so we can... no, never mind. I like how that sits. Okay. One indicative thing about this being a synthetic opal is the patterning. Very consistently bright, fiery. I'm not exactly sure what they make synthetic opal like this out of. There are a bunch of simulants for opal. Some are foil inserts. Some are quartz topped, essentially hologram material. This one, I think, may be lab-grown opal. Or something similar, if they do that kind of thing. Okay, yep, I like those seats now. I think I'm just going to leave that one where it was. So we're going to polish those, and we're going to get ready to set. Oh, my goodness. I just realized I was not even in the microscope doing all that. Sorry about that. I'll get better at this. All right. So we're going to polish that gently with the wheel brush on both the sides. Had that little bit of run around there on that prong, so we're going to smooth that out real quick. Only enough where we'll be able to polish it and shape it. Because this is a synthetic opal, I'm thinking it's probably not opal material. It will be a little more resistant to polishing. I'm going to use my file here to take away a little bit of that excess metal from our burr. And then we're going to switch over to our polish. And polish the inside of the seats real quick. And stay away from the bottoms. Okay. What time do we have? 9:51. Let's get to our platinum real quick. We're going to come back to setting this opal. I want to make sure we get that platinum soldered so I can show you the shaping and the repair of it. We may have to do the setting on a different day. But we can get this guy knocked out. At least we'll do the soldering and then the shaping. Alright, pre-polish those prongs really well. Get down onto the galleries where we won't be able to reach it after it's in place. Just gently. Make sure we brighten up those prongs a little bit too for the melee setting. Okay. That one we are going to set aside briefly and work on some platinum. Alright. Sure we still got our piece here. Put away our chain. Right there. Okay. Let's steam that off. So we're pretty clean now. I think we're clean enough that we can start soldering on it. So we need our tiny little piece here. And set it in place. We're going to hold this up. Clamped about right there. I'm going to balance that little chunk in there. I said we're going to flow that through. I think I'm going to flow that top down so I can eat from the underside and not lose control of our piece. So let's go to our soldering can. hopefully you're picking up, or the audio's picking up. Whoop. Trying to get wrapped up in my in my torch. All right. Clamp that just like so. Got that piece in place. We need our platinum solder. Okay. Which is should have some platinum repair solder here somewhere. Oh, I've got it. Just a matter of finding it. There it is. Okay. So platinum repair solder flows a little bit like white gold. I'm going to treat it kind of like that. And I just need the correct tool here to cut it. There. I'm probably going to cut off 2 little chunks. Put them top and bottom on this piece, and then flow it down to the inside, since we're going to have to clean up the top anyway. Now, because it's platinum, we have to take safety precautions. So I'm going to do that with a welding helmet. So this is an auto darkening helmet. It should turn on enough where I can still maintain a good image of the piece in front of me. I'm going to make sure our sensitivity is kind of high, and we should be at a good shade. Our delay doesn't matter. We're not welding. Okay. So, just going to protect our eyes as we do this. Okay. Now, one thing we don't have to do with platinum that we do have to do with gold is to use flux. Now, we will use flux on this piece because it also protects diamonds from oxidation. So we're going to put flux mainly on our stones. But it is not necessary in platinum to flux to prevent oxidation or to reduce the surface tension of our solder. All we're doing is using it to reduce oxidation. Whoop, got an alarm. Okay. So you will notice this get white hot. As we're working. Okay. And because this is repair solder, it will flow, it will sweat, similar to gold at a lower temperature. So I should be able to pull that into our piece. Okay, because it's platinum, we got to get it really hot. There we go. All right, our auto darkening helmet worked pretty well, but it made it a little too dark, so I may have to make some adjustments before I do our sizing. So we're going to let that cool down. Platinum cools very fast, so we don't have to wait very long. We'll put our helmet away for now. Hopefully that's all we need to do with that. That may almost be cool enough to touch, even though it was red hot just a moment ago. Yep, I could almost pick that up. We'll let it cool down just a little bit more, and then we'll take a look and see if we got a good repair. Okay. All right. That is soldered. We'll keep our black opal here together. I'll do a quick check here. Oh, I know what you are. Okay. So this one's pretty close to being ready to set. Now, because of the length of these prongs and how thin the wire is holding the basket, I don't want to do a lot of work after I pull those prongs in. So all I'm going to do after that point is cut off the prong with the saw, take it down just very barely with a sanding disc, and then cut burr it as close as possible to the top. All right. Just checking out. There we go. Cool. All right. If you have any questions about this process, feel free to throw them in the chat. All right. So I think we are good to go with setting this stone. Oh, I bet we're cool now. Yes. All right, let's take a look at our repair and make sure it went swimmingly. And would you look at that? That sweat through really well, and we've got a nice solid connection all the way around. Now, owing that mainly to making sure that we were close to contact on all those places. And it looks like our stones are all intact. A little bit of flex on there, so what we're going to do is throw this in the pickle. It'll take any of the flex off. You see some of the flex sitting on the diamonds there. It'll take all that, what we call flex glass, off. And then we'll go through, we'll cut that off, we'll shape it. We'll see about setting these other stones after that opal's in place. Here's a good example of flex glass. It's filled in that gap, and it just kind of breaks away like glass. So that'll come off. All it needs is a little bit of acid, citric acid in this case. Heat it up. sure we have distilled water in there. Okay, so let's go ahead and start working these prongs over. As I'm doing this, I'm going to make sure I'm moving them in multiple directions as I turn, or as I bend it. That prevents spring back, and we can gently work it over instead of pulling it straight over the top of the stone. That takes risks, both in breaking the stone and breaking the prong. Also gently work it back and forth like that. You probably want to do that in this case so we don't put undue pressure on that gallery. Potentially break it out. It's moving an awful lot, so we may avoid that for now. Let's see if we can bend this over gently. See, it kind of sprung back on me. Alright, switching to our parallels. So I can grab hold of that prong really tight. Ooh, I do not like the way that that basket, or that gallery is bending. I don't want to scratch the stone either as I'm moving it. I'm just going to bend these together. Not a big fan of the design here. They made the stone setter's job a lot harder. Okay, that one bent a little further down than I want, so what I can do is grab that prong and bend the top of it back and then lay the base of it forward. What I don't like about this is the prong isn't really bending. It's the gallery that's bending. So we're going to grab that prong and we're going to twist it. I prefer not to put my tool on the stone. And be careful not to do that there. Even if it's a simulant and not as soft as opal, we can still scratch a lot of those simulant materials. We don't want that. Well, that is sitting kind of funny. I hope I didn't do what I think I did. I just turned the stone the wrong way. I think I did. Son of a gun. I gotta get better at marking these. I'm just gonna sneak this guy in. Just like so. You won't be able to do that once the stone's set in place. There we go. That prong pulled it tight. Gonna lay that one down, but all the rest of them look like they are very nicely down on top of the stone. That's what we're going for. I'm going to straighten this guy up just a hair. Same thing. Roll it gently forward as I'm twisting it, and that prevents it from springing back. This prong is sitting a little high. And the stone wants to rock, so somewhere we're not making good contact, or the prong is bent the wrong way. So what I'd like to do is look at the back of the prongs. Yep, see that one bent a little bit, so we're going to move it back in place. And this guy can go a little bit this way. That way. Got a little bit less rock. So I think we need to squeeze the end just a hair. And see if it's level. Ah. Need to go the other way. Kind of squishing out. Part of the reason I polished those seats before I set that opal in is for this reason exactly. If I need to move that around, I know I'm not going to be putting a sharp or rough surface onto that stone. Which could cause a chip or a break. And there we go. Whoop! What did I move there? That didn't go right. Let's look at it from the top. Oh yeah, that is starting to look good. And we're shifting down here, so all right. A little bit up. All right, that stone is nice and tight. It looks like we mostly maintained the shape. You have to go in here and bend that gallery inward just a hair. Do not like these really thin galleries. Okay. One more adjustment that we're going to make. And give it a very slight turn. Only touching the prongs here. There we go. Alright, that is set. Monster looking opal in this pendant. Alright, so we're going to mark the prongs now. And cut them off. Don't want to cut them too low, but we do want to... Whoops. Need to straighten this prong a little bit. Do want to make sure that we still get our nice cannonballs. Okay. We are nice and tight now. Let's go to our saw blade. Okay, we want them to be relatively uniform. I think we're going to have to use a smaller saw blade for this. If you're throwing any of the chats in on YouTube, I don't think I'm picking those up for some reason. Oh. Never mind. I am. Alright, there we go. Okay, I'm going to set my Gravermax here, or not Gravermax, my Benchmate up here so I can get a good angle on this. So I want visually our ball to start where it makes contact, the last bit of contact on top of the stone here. So we're going to cut about right there to leave us plenty of room. Whoa, what just happened there? That shift? Oh, that's only in one spot. Okay. I thought those were connected in two. That makes me even more nervous about it. Let's, Let's do this with the sanding disc so I don't put undue pressure on that. Oh my gosh, I don't even think those are soldered. They might just be hooked in. Oh man, that would be disappointing to see. Alright. Let's go with the sanding disc. We'll just stay away from the stone. And we'll cut those down to an appropriate height. I want to make sure we don't touch the stone because it will abrade. And not to get the prong too hot, because we don't know how that's going to act under heat. Most of the time I like to do this with the saw because we can maintain some of that metal, and that can be useful for us later. For other projects, mainly. Ooh, that got hot. Alright, so let's switch to a cup burr. We've got a nice variety here that we can use. So we're going to pick the one that fits the best on top of that prong. Definitely not that guy. Getting closer. That's our winner. Just over the top. We're going to round this off. We're going to avoid touching the stone with it. My preference is usually to do this in, or to run the cut burr in my flex shaft, because even though it does buck around a little bit, I like to run it slower, and I like the torque of being able to start off easier. You get less chatter with the cut burrs on the flex shaft. You just have to be careful about how it bucks around. Oh my goodness, what is going on here? Oh no. Oh dear. Alright, I'm going to cut burr these. Ooh, maybe not. That looks like that might have broken away in 2 spots. Okay. Well, we are in for a treat here. So what I'm going to do here... we may have to take our stone out to fix that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut burr. No, I better not. No, that's a pain in the butt. I don't think that was fully connected. May just be a solder point. Well, always a challenge. Nothing ever comes easy. So we're going to take this out of our gray plate, and we're going to take a look and see what's going on here. NJack40 says, clearly ring sizing is more complex and intricate than a layperson might assume. I had no idea it was so involved, and at the same time maintaining integrity of the circumference of the ring. Let's see. Ring sizing. Yep, hold on. So the work I'm doing on the Platinum right now is just a repair. There was a chunk missing out of the side where it looks like it got really thin, so we're filling that gap in. Now, sizing a ring, we usually saw through the ring either in one spot or cut out a chunk and bring it, let's see. So we'll cut out a chunk and then bring it in together and solder at the point. Soldering in this case would be pulling. So solder is an alloy that melts at a lower temperature than a full alloy, meaning 14 karat solder would be 58.5% gold, but it has slightly different alloys in it, either nickel, copper, sometimes tin, can be added in different quantities, in different percentages, to make that solder flow a little bit quicker. So we'll take solder and it will sweat through, meaning it follows heat, and it will pull through even in the tightest connections to go to the heat and create bonds between the two surfaces. So if we had a flat piece and a flat piece coming together in a ring sizing, we're going to create a bond there. Not molecular like we would with a laser welder, but nearly that. It connects all those pieces together, mending and fitting in the lattice structure of the metal. Soldering. So ring sizing always includes soldering of some sort or lasering, because you have to bond those pieces together, right? But yes, you do have to maintain the circumference of the ring as round. And we do that by going in small steps or using particular bending pliers to bend in multiple places along the ring, and then we'll put it on a mandrel, which is a flat, round, big bar like this, that's got notches on it or marks on it that show each different ring size, and we'll compare it to that, and then we'll use this, tapping it with a hammer, usually to finish that round shape and make sure it's completely round on the inside. Okay, so that should be good. Go ahead and take it out here. So let's take a look and see where that break happened. Now, that's unusual, but I guess because of the... So what a lot of these are, when a manufacturer does a piece like this, they'll make one mold for the filigree, and they'll make one mold for the basket, or in this case the set of prongs that'll go around the stone, and then they'll make one for each size of stone that this would accommodate, or shape of stone in this case. They may even have some that are clusters of a series of smaller settings that they can just drop down into this pendant, or they may have this pendant without a basket entirely. It may just be a round loop. So let's look at the back here and see what they did. All right. Yep, they just used these little tiny bars to connect that, and it looks like it might have broken at the solder seam. So that gets to be a lot more fun, because now we're going to have to take that stone back out, but because we've already got our seats cut, that'll be easy enough to put back in. But we're going to have to resolder that in those spots. And then put our stone back in place. So, I wanted to finish this one today, but I don't think we're going to have the time. I want to get back to that platinum sizing and, or not sizing, the platinum repair, and reshape that piece. All right. So, when a manufacturer like this makes a piece, they might take some shortcuts, and in this case, we know they did, because they did very poor connections between the basket and the rest. So we'll add, I see exactly what happened. So they used a laser and just lasered that in. Now when you laser metal, especially white gold, it can be brittle at the laser connection if you don't use the proper waveform, and this gets into the science of it. The waveform of the laser, or the heat profile of the laser, being how it applies the heat to the piece. Sometimes with platinum, you want it to put a lot of heat on it quick and then taper off gently, and that'll allow that metal to recrystallize together more gently than if we were to hit it hard and then drop off, which we can use for other applications. White gold works relatively well with that. Now with white gold, it can become brittle if you don't, like I said, apply heat in that in the correct way. So sometimes we'll apply heat with the laser, apply energy. I should be using the term energy instead of heat in this sense. Apply energy quickly at a consistent basis, and then taper off after holding it for a second. So different lasers will have that option, but you can prevent having brittle connections by using the appropriate waveform for whichever metal you're using. So, the more you know. All right. So, that is a bummer. Really wish we could have finished this piece tonight, but we're not going to be able to. I'm going to have to take this stone out, solder that connection, put the stone back in. We will come back and do this on another stream. I'll make sure we do so we can finish this one out and show you the resulting product. So we'll set this one aside for now, and we'll come back to it on another day. Let's get back to that platinum and see if we can finish it up before we get to 11 o'clock. Okay. Looks like our citric acid pickle did a pretty good job of that, of removing the material here. I need a little bit of distilled water. You have to be very careful in, hopefully you can pick me up here. I'm going to turn on the other microphone while I'm standing on the other side here. Okay, hopefully that's coming through. You have to be very careful with acids, even milder acids like citric acid. The concentration that we use for pickling is very concentrated, so it can cause burns. You don't want to get it on your hands, or not for very long on your hands. Get it off pretty quickly. So usually when we come out of our pickle, is there a pickle here? We drop it in some distilled water, swizzle it around a little bit just to get that off. And now we can take a look at the resulting piece. Yes, Anjac40, your question, thank you for asking about ring sizing. We do have a platinum ring sizing on the docket here, which we will probably do tomorrow. Now that I know my helmet's going to work for darkening that, we'll come back and do that tomorrow. So you can see the process entirely. I've already got the piece cut that we're inserting into it. We're just going to hold it in place, and you can watch as I walk through the steps of actually sizing it. Just about every ring can be sized. If you get too thin on the shank, a lot of the times the jeweler might recommend that you do a reshank, which is cutting off the shank closer to the top, putting on a brand new shank on it that's thicker. So just about every piece of jewelry can be sized to fit any finger. I have sized up to 17. My wife has done some that are even larger than that. We did some rings for the Kansas City Chief ambassadors in one of the shops that I worked at, and they were massive, huge rings. Okay, so we did a pretty good job of getting that solder in. You can see where our ball is left over. So what we're going to do is cut that off with the saw first. To retain as much of that metal as we can. I like to do this in the microscope. I can kind of see that saw blade cutting a bit better. I just want to make sure I'm not cutting anything I don't want to cut. So I'm going to take the bulk off of this. Okay. Got myself pretty good there. That is the danger of working with these little tiny saw blades, is sometimes they slip further than you want them to. And sometimes with these guys, you won't even feel it cut into you. That's the worst ones. You can cut down to the bone and not even realize it. You realize it afterward, not when it happens, which is can be painful. Nicks and cuts are just part of the game, part of the job. Yep. Okay, got a little squirt going. I think I've got something to take that. Blood, sweat, and tears goes into jewelry making. Sometimes more blood than anything. A lot of times more tears. So I'll get that off screen shortly. No, nobody wants to look at that. Just want to finish making this cut. Just a hazard of the job, I guess. Okay. I'm going to bend that away instead of... We'll do our best not to get any blood contaminating our piece. So, this is a pretty good time to talk about what we do when we get injuries on the job as a jeweler, because you have to have your fingers in working condition. And my answer to that is super glue. I know that sounds a little odd, but it works really well in mending little cuts like this. They make products like liquid bandage. They'll do the same thing, but effectively it's very similar to the super glue in composition. So I would just take a little bit, dab it on there like that, and then I can keep working, and I can still maintain my tactile feel and not bleed everywhere. All right. Well, that's not a bad thing. Also, after a cut like that, the super glue can keep it clean if you still need to do some work. So, like this, probably not going to glue that together. I'll just let it clot. But let us readjust this. So now we've got that. Whoop, there we go. Now we've got that piece cut and lightly shaped. We're going to take a grinding wheel and run over the top of that to pre-shape it. We'll do the rest of the shaping with a very small file, probably. There we go. Let's get a grinding wheel out. In this case, I'm using what's called a heatless Mizzy wheel, and this is made to very quickly go through a large amount of metal. So you have to be careful not to overdo it with a wheel like this. Okay, heatless Mizzy wheel. I'm going to take off the biggest offending corners here first. And you see the platinum, it just wants to, at the very end where that Mizzy is cutting away, even though it's abrading that away, it's kind of smearing it down. Look, it creates this little ridge here over the edge. That's just the nature of platinum. When you do abrade it, it wants to keep its structure, which is awesome. But over time, you can make your prongs look very flat or even long and thin. something, a whack on a table, or you tap it on the door handle of your car. You know, you tap it once, it doesn't move a lot, you don't notice it, stones stay tight. You tap it 10,000 times, which you're going to do, and eventually platinum will mold or morph. That's what happened on the end of this baguette. It was probably flat all the way across and had two big ridges with milgrain on it, but over time, just in wearing and even handling it, you're slowly morphing that metal out of shape. Alright, just taking off the worst spots. And then we'll come back in with file and make that picture complete. I don't want to think how many liters of blood I might have left in the in the shops that I've worked at, or the shop that I worked at recently. All right, so I'm going to use a flat file. I'm going to shape this. Just on a little file here. Where did you go? File. Alright, so it looks like this comes up kind of like a knife shank, where it's rounded and then it comes to a point. So we're just going to try to mimic that with our repaired piece here. With that Mizzy wheel, you can get debris all over the place here. Ah. Well, it looks like our repair was successful. So let's do the sides here. We'll smooth that down and match it. We're going to have to refurbish this a little bit, so I'm not worried about putting scratches in the side of this shank, because we're going to do a lot more than that. Readdressing your question, NJack40, the sizings are relatively straightforward for a jeweler, but they can come with challenges based on the shape of the shank, the thickness of the shank. If it's been sized before, it might have seams, and you have to be aware of those seams as a jeweler, because if you put heat to an area that's been repaired before, remember those alloys like to flow at lower temperatures than the surrounding metals. So sometimes you can flow the solder in a repair that you didn't do in the process of doing a repair yourself. So I've had rings fall into 3 or 4 pieces as I'm soldering on them because I wasn't aware that they'd been soldered on before. So you gotta basically reshank a ring at that point, cut out all the solder seams where other jewelers had cut into it, and start basically from scratch, from a new shank. So I'm just going to gently shape this down. Now you can't see that from the microscope. Let's do it from this way. I'm using a Swiss cut file, a barrette file. I really like this file. I use it for a lot of things, probably more than I should, when other tools might be more applicable. but it is useful for getting into spaces. It's a Swiss cut, it cuts nicely, doesn't gum up or bind up even in platinum, so that's what I like. Okay, so we're going to take the level of that down and maintain our point, our edge there on top. And just kind of reapply a smooth surface to the area that we worked on. Okay, so I've taken that down quite a bit. I'm going to compare it to the other side real quick. It looks like it's kind of got a kink in it, so I'm going to mimic it on this side so that it at least looks like the other, even though the other isn't original either. We're just going to make it uniform and symmetrical as much as possible. Cut out just a little bit more right there. And blend it over the top of our file here. Now, if I wanted to, I could come in here with what I call a porosity killer and use that to fill that, or to blend that hole or that dip. I think I'm just going to round it because the other side is a little more rounded. Still keeps that generally pointed shape. Okay. So I think I did a pretty good job of matching that. I'm going to take a little bit off right here. Let's look at the other side. Yep. I feel pretty good about that. That is a successful repair on that portion. Other than that spot that I'm going to take down right now. So, what we had was a hole here, and we cut out a chunk, and we applied, or we cut out a square shape. We applied a piece of square stock platinum that we cut from another ring. We soldered it in with the appropriate repair solder for platinum. Platinum has plum solder, which means it is alloyed platinum, and then repair solder, which is not platinum, but it is the color that platinum will be after you polish it, and it flows at a much lower temperature. You can work with it a little easier, and most of the time, in the right occasion, you will never notice that it has been repaired. Now, the jeweler might be able to look at it and say, oh, you got a slight discoloration right there, that's been repaired. Or he might look on the inside, oh, look at there, and decided to bleed on it. Like on this case, I can look down in here and see that that was repaired, because they did exactly what I did. They put a chunk of metal in and soldered it in. You can see the texture right here is different than the rest of the ring. That is indicative of solder, not casting. So we just did the same thing on the other side. And you can kind of tell on this side that it's been soldered. So we can even blend this side a little bit, take out some of these scratches, and refurbish it to make it look more neat. This ring will probably never look brand new, but it will look better once we get done with it, because we're going to address some of the other issues. But we'll have to do that, likely on a different stream. We're coming up on 11 o'clock. I'm going to continue smoothing this and get it shaped, and then we'll look at resetting a couple of those stones to the side before we get to the center stone. But we do have a non-holy and unholy platinum piece at this point. Alright, feel good about that. Let's put this back in our other ring holder. Oh, lost all my viewers because I bled on screen, yes. Everybody gets squeamish when the blood starts flowing. No, I'm just kidding. I know that's not the case. Well, nothing goes exactly as planned. So we got a little bit done on these. We're not any closer to finishing this ring because we've got to go back and finish the setting work. And we're not that much closer to finishing the opal ring because we've got to take it back out, or the opal pendant, because we've got to take it back out and put it back together. But we will get there. All right. So let's look at these areas that got bent. I'm sure there was damage here. Oh, there it goes. Just needs to flex back out. And platinum, like I said, because it's flexible, it allows me to press that back in place without too much fuss. And because this is a fishtail style ring, these are split right here. I'm just going to make sure we're flat with the rest of the ring. Not the most long-lasting setting style, for sure. So what we'll do is put another stone in here, and then we'll kind of split the top of this fishtail. And the reason they call it a fishtail is right here. Looks like a fish's tail between those. So I should have some little stones I can test fit. Let's see if any of these guys work. Oh man, those are huge. These are not going to be okay. But we are in luck, because I think I've got some single cuts that will be the right size. These are like 1.6 millimeter. Those are probably all going to be too big. Let's see. That's going to be too big. So we'll wrap those up. I'll check my backstock here. Let's see if I've got some single cuts that are the right size. Maybe in luck. Single cut is a term for a stone that is not brilliant cut. It has about half the facets that a brilliant cut stone will have on both the crown and pavilion. Put a couple out here and just generally see if these are going to fit. When you get this small, these are sub-point stones, meaning they're way smaller than 100th of a carat. Looks like we have the right size. Oh, we just have to make sure we use a single cut. That one might fit, but I really didn't really need it. That is not a diamond. And not a single cut. Well, those are pretty big. Yeah. These measure. About 1 millimeter. These are probably going to be too small for these areas. Let me see if I've got what I'm going to do. Much closer. Let me just get a brown brilliant here instead of a single cut. That might be as good as I've got. Right there is a single cut. See, it has fewer facets versus a round brilliant. That one might be good. There's another single cut the right size. We just got to go digging. I kind of got a mixed bag here that I purchased from a person who scraps stones, or scraps rings that cut out these stones. Made me a good deal. All these are a good color. Just the cut on them varies, and the quality of the stone, like that guy. There's a single cut. All right, we're at 11 o'clock. I think we're going to cut it off here. And we'll come back and work on these tomorrow. I say tomorrow. I'm going to put a pin in that one. It will be tomorrow or Monday when we get back to these. Let's see. Real quickly, you can watch the newest video postings at YouTube and Rumble. I believe I got 1 video up on Rumble now, and 3 on YouTube. These are cut down versions of episode 6. Get it right. Episode 6, where we set a couple of center stones and a solitaire pendant. And I just realized I was talking in the other microphone and not this one. Oh no. I hope it hasn't been too long. All right, so we new videos up on YouTube. Check them out. Drop a like if you can. Watch them for a few minutes. You'd be doing me a big favor. So drop a like on that. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Thank you guys who did subscribe on Rumble this week. I appreciate you joining us, and I hope you're getting notifications. If you're not getting notifications, you can make sure that you are using the Rumble app. The app makes it a little easier to find these streams. You don't have all the features. You don't have all the features that you do on the website, but it'll get you there and let you do picture-in-picture. So if you want to, like what I like to do when I'm watching podcasts, like I was watching Nick Ricada's show this afternoon, I think. Yeah, it was this afternoon, not yesterday afternoon. Watching Nick Ricada's show, you can pull that out and watch it while you're doing other things. So picture-in-picture with that, which is kind of cool. Which YouTube has built in, but now Rumble does too. So check it out. Watch those videos on YouTube, on Rumble. You can watch any of the streams. They'll go up as video on demand afterward. I'm looking for the right words. All right. Anyway, check those out. We will be back. Most likely not tomorrow. We'll go ahead and say Monday for the next stream, 8 to 11 p.m. Every day this week is what we're shooting for. This coming week, after Monday or Tuesday, we'll be working on some things that will go up on my Jackson Family Jewels website. So check that out. So if you want any information about any of the pieces you see tonight, you can contact me at dml@jacksonfamilyjewels.com and get pricing information. So we are running past 11 now. I'm going to go in, see my lovely wife and my beautiful son, and I hope everyone has a great evening. And thank you for sticking around and watching me in all my successes and failures. I will keep doing this, and we will continue to grow. So with that, I think we'll leave it there. This is Jeremy Jackson, and thank you for watching Drip Made Live.